Welcome to Bowie News and Views. My co-host Bert Oliver is engrossed in making money today, so he is not with us. But I'm pleased to have as our guest Michael Rauch, who has created, at least to me and to many others, one of the really good websites featuring Bowie. It's called Bowie Living. I'm a fan. He's scooping the local media. He's producing some fantastic photos, and we want you to know about it because it's one great place to go and visit. Michael, by the way, has the unique distinction of having joined the Devlin clan here in Bowie. He's married to Mimi Devlin, who of course is the daughter of the venerable Judge Jerry Devlin, who has been here since Governor Ogle used to live in the Bel Air mansion. I should have said that probably, but what the heck, he laughs occasionally. Without further ado, I'll let Michael tell you about A, how he met Mimi, and B, how he came to Bowie and what his experience has been so far.
All right, well, thanks. I'd never had such a great introduction before.
Not bad, huh?
I think maybe if you're around for my funeral, I'll book you for that as well. But I had met Mimi when I actually went to high school in New England, and I lived around New Hampshire and Massachusetts for a period of time. And when she was going to school, getting a graduate degree up in Boston, I was working in Boston at the time, and we had met. And eventually, I had moved down to Maryland. For a period of time, we lived over in the Wheaton section, and then we bought a house here back in 2002.
Okay.
So we've been in the Whitehall section since 2002.
You left Wheaton because you didn't understand the language, I guess.
Well, Wheaton, when we first moved down here, we wanted to live in a place where we didn't know exactly where we wanted to be. And so we thought we'd rent in Wheaton. It was very convenient. She was working in Capitol Hill at the time, so it was convenient to the metro. And then when we started looking at houses, we thought, well, why not Bowie? And so we've been here since 2002. And she's pretty much been here on and off for most of her life. But for myself, just since 2002.
I would also note that she was one of my best reporters when I was editor of the Bowie Blade News.
Well, I thought so. I thought she was the best.
Oh, you're unbiased, of course.
Of course.
And how did you get into the, well, you're a programmer, not a programmer. And
I am, yeah. I was a software developer, and lately I've been more managed people than develop, but lately I've been, in the more recent months, I've been getting more back into develop, mostly because the downturn in the economy, we had some people that had to go,
right.
and so I've got to do some of the work that the people that were working for me had to do.
Okay.
So I've been doing more programming recently.
And you enjoy it as an avocation as well.
Yeah, and this so far with the blogging, I haven't done any real technical things right now. Mm-hmm. So far, matter of fact, I've stayed away from some of them. You can get pretty technical when you're setting up some of these websites.
Oh, I'll bet.
But I've kind of gone with the basics.
Yeah, well, it's certainly working well. Let me ask you what your impressions are of living in Bowie.
It's interesting. I think that well, number one, it's very affordable, and if you are trying to raise a family, if you're trying to raise a family on one income, there's not many places in the D.C. area that you can really do it. And in Bowie, Bowie you can.
Yeah.
But I think that even though a lot of these areas are getting crowded, Bowie still isn't very crowded. Even the population has really increased.
Well, the Levitt area isn't.
Yeah, and people complain. I mean, we get some traffic on 197 over by Fox Hill Park and things like that. And that didn't used to be here. Certainly, if you compare it to Bowie in the 60s and 70s, there's a lot of people here. But if you compare trying to get around in Tyson's Corner where I work, or in Montgomery County where we used to live, it's a bear. Yeah. And sometimes in Tyson's Corner when I'm leaving work, it can take me 35 minutes to go the first mile in some exceptional situations, sometimes around the Christmas holidays when there's a lot of shoppers. And you don't get that in Bowie.
Well, there's been a lot of growth since the 1970, I can tell you.
I certainly missed out on a lot of that.
Oh, jeez. It was a quiet area. It was nice. Getting a little bit too crowded for an old grouch like me, We have a nice selection of pictures which people can see on your blog spot, the address of which I think Jim is going to put up. So, Jim, you going to put up the blog spot address? I guess he'll put it up when he's ready.
Looks like we got it now.
There we go. Either of these, if you're on Facebook, you can go to the bottom one, or just go to the BowieLivingBlogspot.com. It's worth your visit. I really urge you to do so.
The top address is the real address for the blog. Facebook is kind of
sort of a relay.
Yeah, a way for people to get to there. Although lately, now that we have the Facebook stuff, we can get into that a little bit more. Facebook has better photo gallery options, or at least I'm using it for that, so that I'm storing on Facebook. As you'll see when I go through some of these pictures, I have the whole complete Memorial Day pictures on Facebook. But on the blog, it's really not the proper format to show 200 pictures. But on Facebook and the photo area, it's a more appropriate place to have a lot of pictures.
Well, it's becoming more and more popular. And you started it in 2009, and it just sort of sat there. Now, all of a sudden, boom, you've got people going there on a regular basis.
Yeah, it was interesting. It started off as a kind of almost like as an experiment. I got interested in the blogs, and I started to see what was out there. And naturally, I was looking for something local. Is there something that we have that covers Bowie? And what I did find was that there wasn't a lot. Although at the time there was a blog there called Becky's Bowie Blog.
I remember that. Yeah, but she's given that up.
She has. Her name is Rebecca Coleman. She's an author in town here. I think she grew up in College Park, but. She, at the time that I came across it, it was starting to. She was busy actually on one of her books, and so it was. She couldn't spend the time on it, and it also, because she couldn't spend the time, I think that we weren't having, or you weren't seeing a lot of interaction that you might see on a lot of other blogs.
Yeah, I used to go look at it, but sometimes it would be a long time between posts.
And that happens. I think that happens with anybody. When you're, even with myself, certainly when I've got a full-time job, we've got 2 kids at home. Sometimes you just don't have the time.
Yeah.
And it becomes a hobby.
Becky is, though, on Facebook.
She is.
She makes her appearance known.
And she contacted me in February, and she said, "I got a question for you," and I said, "Shoot." And she said, "You know, I don't have time. I keep thinking about taking down my blog, but I like to write occasionally." And she said, "Can I use your blog as like an outlet for writing stuff?" And I thought. At the time, I was actually talking to my wife at the time and said, "Wow, at times it becomes not so much fun, but a little bit of a burden when you've got other things to do." And so I was saying it would be great if other people could write. And then, lo and behold, an email shows up in my email box that she was interested in doing that, and I said that would be great. But so far, it hasn't materialized. But I think
it may after today.
It could. It could. And it's one of the things too that I think that. You know, when we talk later on about where things are going with the blog, I think it's the kind of thing that it's local community information is not just about one person, what one person can produce.
I agree.
It's about a lot of people, and if it's something where a lot of people could get involved, it would be a great thing. And right now, the conversations about Bowie aren't really, you get conversations on Facebook between friends that are taking place, but the conversation about Bowie, for the most part, it's actually still taking place in the Bowie Blade News. Even though we've got some good coverage, news coverage in the Bowie Star, the Bowie Blade News. That's where Pastor Sisson and all the regulars.
Not anymore. He's retired from letter writing.
Has he? Mm-hmm. That's where these maybe it's going away. But that's where you see more conversations about what's going on. It'd be nice if that could some of that stuff could come online and people could.
Well, it has to. It really does, Michael, because in all candor, the local newspapers are no longer local. You know, one's in Landover, the capital, and it's no fault of the editor, is now in Annapolis. You know, they have hardly any staff whatsoever. There's just no way to cover things the way they used to be covered in the old days, for instance, when Mimi was a reporter. It's just the nature of the beast. Newspapers are dying.
I think the public, though, they're still not letting go of the newspapers. And if a news story happens, if you come across a news story, or if you have a picture, they're still getting submitted to the Star or the Blade.
Yeah.
Or if you have a news item, you're contacting a local. You're not contacting BowieLiving.blog to tell them about things. And eventually it would be. I'd like to get to the point where that would be what people might think to do. That they would submit pictures or they would submit stories. Through my network of friends, I hear things like Sandy, for example. She had heard from somebody about Pomo Grill closing.
And, yeah.
So
you scooped them on that.
And it wasn't something that they might normally cover, but when I heard that, luckily it was actually a night. I had a free night. I went down there and I talked to the people at the Pomo Grill, and so it was good to be able to get a piece of information, put it out there.
Yeah.
But then, as it turned out, it was all the information that I got ended up being wrong. They had this plan on bringing a new restaurant to that location.